And Mr. Bond is going to give the presentation, and this is also a joint item for San Joaquin Hills and Foothill Eastern.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I may, I'm going to excuse myself for items 8 and 9 due to potential conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you.
See you in just a few moments.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Bond, Director of IT here at TCA Information Technology. I'll be bringing before the board 3 tools that we'd like to use to enhance our customer service offering. I'm in IT, so I'm going to have to figure this out. So we have our FY17 initiative to improve customer service. Our intention is to improve customer service by talking to customers, listening to customers through feedback and survey tools, the 3 tools that I'm going to outline. Okay, the 3 customer feedback and survey tools, we have 2 that are manufactured by i3, our Interactive Intelligence Inc. They provide our current PBX system, our customer service phone system. They are 2 modules that we can turn on. They're already built into the system, so there is no implementation cost for those. The 3rd tool, the Tamer Customer Driven Management tool, is a consolidation and aggregation of data tool. So the surveys and the data that we collect from our phone system, from surveys via email and stuff like that, this tool can put that all together for us. So the first tool by Interactive Intelligence, i3, is the Interaction Analyzer. This uses sophisticated voice recognition during the actual customer service call. It will listen real time to key phrases, key words, and also track the call progress and rate it during the call. For example, if we assigned, say, levels of it's a great call, it's a not so great call, it's a less than great call, during that call, there's a dashboard that you can see the rating of that call. What that allows us to do is the supervisor to be proactive and see the call is possibly going from great to not so great, and they can interject and intervene into the call to take control of it and help out, instead of being an after the fact. They go back and see what happened, so we can intercept that and try and prevent customer service issues before they happen. Okay, the second i3 piece is the interaction feedback tool. It is, again, in our PBX system, and it's designed to implement customer surveys via the call system. It allows us to create specific customer service survey tools. For example, right now we send out email surveys, and they're very general. We get a very low response. This product will allow us to offer surveys to 100% of our callers. Currently, when we email out, we're only emailing to our customers that have an email address on file in their account. This allows us to get survey data back from people that are calling in for one-time toll, one-time users, and things like that. So it allows us to gather a lot more information than we could. We get about 900,000 calls a year, so that's a huge population that we can pull from. And in the survey process, it's also automatic and independent from the call center agent. So it's not up to them to decide what call gets a survey and what does not. If I'm a call center agent, obviously someone that's talking and really happy with my work, I'm going to send them to the survey. Just makes it completely independent, so it's a fair sampling as well. And then the Tamer Consolidation Feedback System, it's a unique piece of software that collects the data, all the survey data from a lot of different sources, SMS, email, social media, also from our phone system. So we can collect all that data, put it all together, aggregate it, consolidate it, and then look at it and see how we're doing in all the different areas where we need to improve. And where we're doing very well. So our goal is to provide a very consistent, customer-driven customer service system. So the intent is to listen to the customers and what works for them and what doesn't work for them, and then modify our process accordingly. All these tools collect the data, so we can go back and analyze the data. For example, if we want our call center employees to promote one-time toll, by mentioning that, we can go back and look at all the calls and see who's been mentioning one-time toll and who hasn't, things like that. We can also look for customers that have expressed their concerns or things like that. So we can go back across all our calls and see how many occurrences we have, whether it's improving or decreasing. So if we put changes in place, then we have feedback to whether they're working or not. So staff is recommending that the San Joaquin Hills Transportation Corridor authorize the CEO to execute the purchase of additional software modules and licensing from Interactive Intelligent Inc. for a one-time licensing cost of $60,381, and authorize the CEO to execute a one-year contract with the Tamer Partners Corporation for a customer-driven management and experience survey cloud-based services application. It's also, staff is recommending that the Foothill Eastern authorize the I3 for their 2 modules for a cost of $58,013, and then authorize the CEO to execute a one-year contract with the Tamer Partners Corporation for $10,584. And with that, I'll take any questions.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Dr. Cowden.
Jeff, I didn't notice this before. Why is the split between San Joaquin and Foothill? Foothill is actually paying less than San Joaquin on this.
Okay, I'll have to read that. The customer split is based on, it was determined by using a portion of the staff time handling accounts versus violations, and then applying those percentages to the ratio of transaction and violation notices processed by each agency.
So you're saying that San Joaquin Hills needs more customer service? We have dumber drivers on San Joaquin Hills.
We're more aggressive, we're more assertive.
Why wouldn't this be split just based on the typical revenue streams like we normally do? Because I'm presuming that it varies as far as the need for customer service.
That is true, Director. So across our operations budget, we really try and focus on which agency receives the most benefit from a particular expenditure. So when it comes to customer service activities such as this one, we work through the budget process and establish the percentage split that Jeff just described. And I wouldn't call or portray the customers of one agency versus the other any differently, except that we, in customer service, we do more work related to San Joaquin transactions than we do for them. And that's why it's now the 51%.
Too many attorneys that live in that area, I guess. But I still understand, because the number changes through the years, why don't you still base it on the revenue?
No, we establish this as part of the budget each year, the split. So we do revisit it each year, but it does not change throughout during the course of the fiscal year.
Doesn't it change month to month as far as customer service costs?
So this is an allocation, so we can't necessarily track and say this exact call from this customer was only related to San Joaquin or to Foothill. So we establish an allocation as part of the budget process, and it just divides the work based on that overall look versus any particular call. Not sure if I answered your question.
Normally we do a split based on revenues more benefit. And so you've established a benefit here based on the number of calls, but you just told me that you can't track it based on agency. So I'm a little confused.
So we look at the overall work effort, right? And then we look at the number of transactions by agency, and we do that as part of the annual budget process. So when we look at the transactions related to customer accounts, related to violation processing, and then we look at the work effort within customer service in terms of how much time do we estimate we spend handling normal customer accounts versus violations. And that's all part of the math and the computation we use to come up with the percentage split for agency.
Okay, so that actually does vary month to month, but at the end of the year is how you establish it for the next year.
Yes, we could have fluctuations during the month. That's true, Director. But we look at it at the end of each fiscal year to establish the budget and the split for the next fiscal year.
All right, thanks.
On behalf of Foothill Eastern, I'd like to move approval.
Okay, so we've got a motion, but we have a couple of questions. I'm going to start with Director Hackton and Director.
I'll move approval for San Joaquin.
Yeah, we raised this issue in committee, as I recall, and one of the answers seemed to be the extreme amount of charge. We're talking about the single charge on the 73, which outweighs any charge on the Foothill Eastern, and because of that, the numbers were much larger for smaller amounts.
Actually, I would probably have to look at Ms. Potter to help answer that, Director, but the revenue split, when we have certain expenses, say credit card expenses,
Right.
we allocate those based on the revenue because that's how the expense is determined. So when you look at our line item in the budget for credit card expenses, you will see those split 50-50 because that's what the revenue between the two agencies equates to. So I didn't want to convey that we use this one split for everything in operations. This is the particular split being used for this item and related activities or expenses.
The amount of monies that are attributed to San Joaquin for a smaller number of clientele. Frequently, we talked about this, and we attributed to the larger expenditure, for instance, at the one gate, 73, which outweighs the expenditures typically that you're looking for on the Foothill Eastern. Dollar amounts, yes.
This item is not based on the revenue stream.
Okay.
This is more based on the expenses and where the work is done in customer service.
Okay, and Director Simpson.
Dr. Johnson, you know, this is like budget dust, right? I mean, this is a really small ticket item for something that's critical, but each agency does have a fiduciary obligation with respect to the proper allocation. So my question is, maybe you don't know the answer, but we have an audit function here, right? We have an internal audit function. Janet Sutter's the person at OCTA. She kind of is an independent utility player. She just floats around all the different departments to make sure they're following and complying with the rules. So who in audit, like in other words, Amy, who is the person who, this is an important item. We need to know at the end of the year, right, that you're shoring it up and it's allocated properly. So who assists with that process? Because I would offer an action item, a third item on the recommended actions, which is at the end of your fiscal year or calendar year, at the appropriate time, that internal audit would ensure it's shored up, and then we'd have this sense that it was reviewed. So who would do that, Amy?
Yes, our internal audit manager, Greg Walker, and his department did look at our allocations, in particular this year, because we made a pretty substantial change in looking at how the operational expenditures were allocated between the two agencies. And it really revolved around our change to going cashless and how a lot of the expenditures in the past related to on-road activities, whereas now the emphasis is on the back office system. And so our internal audit manager did take a look at the allocations and
in terms of forming this recommendation on the split?
For the budget process.
Okay,
so
my question is with this specific item.
Yes, yes, because this specific item was part of the budget allocation.
But I'm just asking for help here. You have a director's concern, and it's a good one, that it should be properly allocated and it should be monitored. Whether month to month may be overkill, but at some point you have to allocate it and shore it up and properly allocate expenses as with respect to each agency. So what can you suggest internally that could happen, so we would just know that this is happening and it's properly allocated at the end of the period?
Right. So we can have our internal audit function do periodic reviews in addition to that annual review that took place with setting the allocation.
And is that like a huge workload? Is that going to be a huge burden to internal audit?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I mean, I just think that's a good proactive measure. It should happen, and then
No, he's looking at usage.
Because I use the word prophylactic. Well, look it up in the dictionary. It means exactly what it means, to protect. And so, I can't help where your mind goes, Bert, but anyway.
I'm really reflecting on that.
Anyway, I think it's a good measure to ensure that that happens. So if the maker and the seconder are willing to add that, I think it's a good measure, and internal audit can review it, and then we'll all know it's properly allocated at the end of the period.
Foothill Eastern will.
Okay, yeah, okay, so we've got an amendment to the original motion, and Chairman Young has a comment.
Yeah, and if I may, Director Spitzer, I love that you started this with the rounding dust part of the comment, because we're talking, if you look at it, we're really only talking $400 a year worth of difference between the agencies. And so I would encourage, with that motion, that we don't spend more than $400 worth of staff time.
That's what I wanted to
So could perhaps a friendly amendment to your point number 3, that if in the opinion of our finance officer that it's going to cost more for a more frequent than annual review, she can say, let's not do it this year because it appears it's going to cost more than the $400 spread. Is that fair enough?
That's fair enough, accepted.
Okay, so, all right, so we have 2 motions, one for each board, and a question from Director Cruz.
One last question, Mr. Bone, just getting back to the customer service aspect of this item. Should the call center agent, certain words trigger the supervisor to get in on this conversation? Could you just tell me how that works? Does the supervisor stay on the call, or does the service agent remove his or herself? Could you just give me a little bit more information?
It works very similar to the current situation. The supervisor will listen in on the call. They can take over the call. They can speak candidly to the agent as well. So depending on the situation, they may take over the call and finish the call, or help the agent and the agent finish the call.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bone.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions? So we have motion, I'm sorry, the original motion was amended, and then a friendly amendment from Director Fowler was accepted, and from Director Boyce was accepted.
With a $400 cap.
Yes. Okay.
That's going to take us far.
You know, that's Board of Supervisors, yes, we'll have to watch them.
Okay, so Director Bartlett, another comment?
I have a question. When you say the supervisor's monitoring the call, so when they are patching in on the call, they're monitoring, and they want to say take over the call, when they intercept, is this something that the customer hears or just the customer service representative? So the supervisor's just communicating with the customer service rep and the customer can't hear any of this, or?
No.
Okay.
Then what will happen is the agent can pass the call off to the supervisor, notifying the individual, I'm going to escalate the call, or I'm going to pass this over to the supervisor, depending on how we do it.
Okay, I was just concerned about what portion of that dialogue the customer would hear.
I believe, and we haven't implemented it yet, but
I think it's really important to find out, because I wouldn't want the customer to be hearing this dialogue between the supervisor and the customer service rep.
The dialogue is completely candid between the call, the agent, and the supervisor.
Perfect. Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Isn't that one of your functions?
So we have our motions in place, and I'm looking for seconds on those motions.
If I could just clarify, so the audit requirement is that we will just in the course of our internal audit workload, we are going to add to do an audit of the splits, but that will occur over several months and in preparation for next year's budget. Okay. Thank you.
Second, San Joaquin.
I'll second Foothill Eastern.
Okay. Seconds from Director Cruz and Chairman Young. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Ron.
Mr. Chair, I need to report an abstention too, just so everybody's caution. I don't know how to use the word prophylactic correctly, so.
Okay, so
take a ride and talk about it.
So, based on our last meeting, Mr. Joseph, is it an abstention? Is it choosing not to participate? What is the correct language for this? Abstention. It is abstention. Okay. All right. So we have abstention on number 9, and here we are with Mr. Love. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm here to do an overview of the 24191 Express Connector, and we're also going to be talking about the final design contract. The item before you is a Foothill Eastern Agency item recommending award.
Mr. Lowe, could you hold up for just a moment?
For item number 9, I'll be not participating in this item due to the Fine Act. Thank you.
Any other? Okay, please continue.
The item before you is a Foothill Eastern Agency item recommending award of the final design contract for the 24191 Express Connector project. But before I have Juliet come up and discuss the details of that contract, I'd like to first take this opportunity to give you all an overview of the project. This is a photo of the 24191 interchange looking south towards Irvine from the Anaheim-Yorba Linda area. The proposed connector shown in yellow will connect the 241 directly with the 91 express lane east of the interchange. Some background on the 91 express lane. They were opened in 1995, and they were originally built and operated under a franchise agreement between Caltrans and California Private Transportation Company, or CPTC. That agreement prohibited projects that added capacity or improved operations for the 91 corridor. In 2002, legislation was passed allowing the Orange County Transportation Authority to purchase the CPTC franchise, thereby eliminating restrictions on capacity or operational improvement. It also provided for the use of excess toll revenues from the express lanes used on other projects within the 91 corridor. Here's a map showing the 91 freeway from Anaheim on the west to Corona on the east. In black are the limits of the existing OCTA express lanes, and shown in green are the limits of the future RCTC express lanes that are now approximately 85% complete with construction with a planned opening next year. In between the OCTA and RCTC express lanes will be openings where drivers can enter and exit the system. Some background on our connector. In 1992 and 1994, the Eastern Transportation Corridor environmental documents originally evaluated the direct connector from the 241 to the median of the 91. When the Eastern Toll Road opened in 1998, the connector project was deferred to a later time when traffic demanded. In 2009, the connector project was resurrected when Riverside County began plans for extending the 91 express lanes to Interstate 15. In 2010, we worked jointly with OCTA to prepare a feasibility study, and in January 2011, we began development of the preliminary design and started a draft supplemental environmental document. So now I'll talk about the scope of the project. The connector is not simply a bridge over the 91. The work limits begin farther south on the 241 near the Windy Ridge Colton Point, and they extend east on the 91 all the way to Colt Canyon Undercross. It is a median-to-median tolled connector providing access between the 241 toll road and the 91 express lane. It will connect the northbound 241 to the eastbound 91 express lane, and in the opposite direction, it will connect the westbound 91 express lane to the southbound 241. This will require shifting of the 91 eastbound express lanes and general purpose lanes to the south to provide space for the new connector in the median. It includes construction of 2 bridge structures and the widening of 2 existing bridges. As we've gone through the preliminary design process, we've also made additional enhancements to the project to address concerns expressed by our partners at OCTA and RCTC. These enhancements include extension of an auxiliary lane for those exiting the eastbound express lane. We've kept the 4 express lanes consistent throughout the project so that folks do not need to change lanes as they drive through the project. We've also included additional paving and widening for the approaches and departures to the new connector. And lastly, we've provided space for the future RCTC project by adding wall heights and increasing sign gantry spans over and above what our project would typically require. We're going to share with you an animation we developed to give you a better understanding of the scope of the project. In the animation, we'll be driving northbound on the 241, and we'll take the express connector eastbound into the express lane, and then we'll reverse the direction and come back the other way. Yeah. So we're driving home after work on the northbound 241, headed eastbound toward Riverside. and we just passed through the toll point of Windy Ridge. To reach the 91 express lanes in Riverside County, we'll have to wait in traffic and then weave across 5 congested lanes on the 91. Instead, let's take the toll road's new express connector so we can save time and avoid weaving across all that traffic. Here's the point where the westbound 91 traffic exits to the left headed for Los Angeles. The eastbound traffic uses the right 3 lanes, and the express connector will become separated from the general purpose connector. We have designed enough space between the 2 eastbound connectors to place a concrete barrier if needed to prevent queue jumpers. As we cross through the express connector toll point, we are now on the bridge spanning over the eastbound 91 lanes, about to touch down directly into the 91 express lanes. As we touch down on the 91, there are 4 eastbound express lanes. From left to right, the 241 express connector lane that we're in, the 2 continuous 91 express lanes, and an auxiliary lane that allows OCTA express lane drivers a chance to exit before the RCTC express lanes begin. This ingress-egress point provides express lane customers with access to local exits in Corona and also to the northbound Interstate 15. The auxiliary lane also allows access into the RCTC express lanes from local 91 freeway on-ramps, such as Imperial Highway and Weir Canyon Road. So headed in the opposite direction, we're now in the westbound RCTC express lanes, and we're approaching the 241. And in order to get to the 241, we'll have to exit the express lanes and weave across 5 lanes of traffic to take the existing 241 general purpose connector. Instead, let's take the toll road's new express connector that will have a left-hand exit to the southbound 241 directly from the express lanes. Here's where the express connector bridge takes off from the westbound express lanes. It bridges over the eastbound 91 lane, bridges over the north 241 to west 91 connector, and then drops directly into the median of the southbound toll road. So here's the schedule for the project. The vertical yellow line represents where we are today. And as you can see, we're about 3/4 of the way through the project approval and environmental document phase, with a public review of the draft environmental document beginning next month. We're now ready to enter into the final design phase. We'll also be working on the necessary agreements with partner agencies such as OCTA and RCTC so that we can develop a plan to finance the project. Our current schedule shows us starting construction in 2018 with about a 2-year construction duration. Regarding the financing for the project, Stantec has recently completed a preliminary draft of the traffic and revenue study. The banking team has taken that information along with the expected project costs of $120 million, and they developed preliminary options for financing. We're happy to report that the results indicate that the project is financially feasible. Meanwhile, OCTA is currently conducting a peer review of the Stantec TNR study. As you may have noticed, we're partnering with several agencies on the project. FHWA is involved, 2 Caltrans districts, both 8 and District 12, and we also have extensive coordination with the 2 agencies that are operating express lane systems with OCTA and RCTC. So let's talk about some of the benefits of the connector project. The project improves access between the time-saving toll lanes in Orange and Riverside counties. By doing so, it reduces the traffic congestion by offering additional choice to drivers. It also enhances safety by reducing the weaving movement on the 91. It pulls 1,700 vehicles during the peak hours from the 5, the 55, and the surrounding arterials. It puts them on the 241, and that's in the opening year. The project increases regional throughput by 7% within the 91 corridor, and it also helps the region meet the federal air quality requirements. We have a public outreach team engaged, and they are busy out in the community telling them about the project. We recently met with public works representatives from the cities of Anaheim, Yorba Linda, and Corona to brief them on the work. We have an important public hearing coming up next month on Tuesday evening, November 29th at the East Anaheim Community Center. The hearing will be conducted in an open house forum, and we'll be creating a virtual hearing to help broadcast that information online and also solicit the community input regarding the project. So here's a look at next steps. We are planning on releasing the draft environmental document next month for a 60-day review period. And as I mentioned, the public hearing will be on November 29th, with the final environmental document being completed in late 2017. At this time, staff is recommending the beginning of final design, and I'm going to have Juliet Sue come up and give you the details of that recommendation.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Juliet Sue, Corridor Manager in the Engineering Department, and discussing the final design scope of work. We will be preparing the construction plans and associated technical documents, performing geotechnical borings and field exploration, the design of new bridge structures and bridge widenings, preparation of staging and traffic handling plans during construction, and coordinating with Caltrans to obtain the necessary approvals to go to construction, as well as providing engineering services during the construction. A request for proposal was issued in December of 2015. We received 3 proposals from WKE, Michael Baker, and T.Y. Lin. A committee consisting of agency staff, a representative from OCTA, and a representative from Caltrans evaluated both the proposals and conducted interviews with all 3 firms in March of 2016. From the interviews, it was determined that WKE offered the best qualifications through their professional expertise and cost-effective solutions. That included innovative enhancements and improvements to the roadway geometrics, structures design, foundation design, and traffic operations, which potentially will result in construction and schedule cost savings. Proposed structure modifications with significant reduction in construction risk, and a clear and comprehensive approach to stage construction and maintenance of traffic during construction. The interview results are shown in this table, and you can see that WKE received the highest combined score of 362.5 points, which is 21.5 points higher than the second highest ranked firm. Also included in this board item is a Caltrans cooperative agreement that defines the roles and responsibilities for the PS&E and right-of-way work for this project only. Major elements of the cooperative agreement include that FETCA will be funding the PS&E and right-of-way, that Caltrans is the CEQA and NEPA lead agency, that it assigns Caltrans the role of independent quality assurance for the project, and it indicates that the maintenance for the project to the 91 Express Lanes connection will be performed by Caltrans as stated in our existing Eastern Transportation Corridor Cooperative Agreement 12-081. So at this time, staff is recommending to the Foothill Eastern Board to authorize the CEO to execute a contract with WKE for an amount not to exceed $13 million for the final engineering design services, with an authorization for 5% contingency in the amount of $650,000, as well as authorizing the CEO to execute the cooperative agreement number 12-708 between Caltrans and Foothill Eastern Transportation Corridor Agency. And that concludes my presentation, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, I think Director Spitzer has a question.
Well, it's not, but I'm the chair of the committee that's kind of helping babysit this project. So I kind of wanted to lay it out for the directors and kind of explain the lay of the land. So I'll defer if there's questions, because I kind of wanted to give a rah-rah speech about this project. Who said that, correct? So I wholeheartedly support this project, and I think it's pretty important to at least spend a couple of minutes giving everybody the background and how long this project has been on the books and why it's so critical. This was an election issue that Susan Withrow ran on when she ran against me in 1996. This project, she was on this board as the mayor of Mission Viejo way back then, and Helen Wilson was the mayor of Lake Forest, and they were both opponents of mine in the 96 cycle. And this project was on the map as slated to be completed all those years ago, which is just crazy, isn't it? So when I got elected, and then in 2001, I was the chairman of the OCTA right after Mike Ward, may he rest in peace, and he and I together were able to purchase back the 91 express lanes from CPTC, which was run by Greg Holsizer at the time, a private corporation. California had no money to build roads, and so they gave this exclusive franchise down the middle of the 91 express lanes for that stretch. Well, what happened is California, in exchange for that franchise agreement, to protect the investors of that infrastructure, they gave a non-competition clause that extended from the 605 in Los Angeles County to the 15, and said, we will not build this and invest private funds unless you agree as government that no entity between that stretch from the 15 to the 605 can make any improvements that are significant that could hurt our revenue stream. Which, those don't exist now in California, we wiped those out, but that's horrible public policy if you really think about it. But California was desperate for infrastructure. So when we bought that back, we really opened the spigot for the opportunity to make improvements. So we've done improvements there through OCTA, TCA's made improvements, and so all these agencies, RCTC, Sandbag, a lot of these agencies have made improvements that have really helped mobility. So where we're at on this project now, and I think it's really important for you all to understand this, because some of you might be thinking, because we did in committee, and it's really important to explain this, why is TCA moving forward on this project unless and until OCTA gives the green light that it's going to recommend to its OCTA board of directors to approve this project? And the answer is, we are further along than we've ever been in that exercise, and if we don't start to do our work, kind of like how you merge onto the freeway, if we don't do this work, then we will not be set up and poised to be able to advance that conversation, nor be ready to execute if OCTA board approves it. Lisa, of course, is not participating, as she's already indicated, but she and I are very forceful voices at the OCTA to approve this project. This is about improving regional mobility. I mean, I don't know if any of you have really had a chance to drive out on the 91 stretch. I don't recommend during normal hours. I drive at about 4 in the morning because you could actually see progress, and that's when I get up. So I actually go out there and watch how things are working, and it's amazing what's happened on the 91 in Corona East. Like, it's phenomenal. And that's great. That's progress, right? Because we have so many jobs here, especially in our urban core, right? Tustin, Irvine, Yorba Linda. And people need to get here for their jobs, but they can't afford to live here. So we really have a real responsibility to increase regional mobility. But I need to let you know some of the caveats, because you probably haven't heard what I'm about to tell you. The sales tax revenue for Measure M is significantly in jeopardy. We have cut bus service because our bus tax, which is a different source of money, is in jeopardy. Why? Because big boxes are locating into the Inland Empire. We're not getting the sales tax because it's generally point of origin, not point of destination. That doesn't affect Measure M, but it affects our buses. But what's happening with Measure M is just like public safety, right, 172, they're both half-cent sales tax. They really have declined significantly. And it doesn't look like it's rebounding the way we thought. So the 91 express lanes, right, our partnership, I'm trying to explain the OCTA issues quickly. OCTA is shedding about 17 to 20 million in excess revenue above and beyond debt, maintenance, and expenses on the 91 express lanes, which is a huge success story. And some of you might say, well, they shouldn't make any money, but it's priced to move people at 55 miles an hour. So with that, that's the commodity, and it's shedding that kind of revenue. So that excess revenue, to me, and when Mike Ward and I cut the deal, we got RCTC and everybody to agree that we would use that excess revenue to make improvements in the corridor. And we actually had to codify that in state law. Rod Pacheco carried the bill, and Luke Correa carried the bill. What's happening though now with the shortfall Measure M, OCTA is desperate to find revenue to fulfill the promises of the Measure M obligations that it told the voters it would fulfill. So there's 2 projects in the 91 corridor that are Measure M improvements that OCTA is now examining to use excess revenue from the 91 to help pay for those Measure M projects. That is a fundamental change in the way we've done business. Our board hasn't gone there yet, OCTA, but you need to understand that OCTA is starting to feel a lot of pressure to fulfill the promise of Measure M, and it has a shortfall in revenue. Our focus, because this project, and I would think Mr. Kramer would argue, maybe Mr. Lowe, that OCTA has not been as focused on this as it might want to be, and that's because we're currently negotiating with TIFIA for the financing for the 405. So all of our resources right now and energy is negotiating on the 405, and that's a big project, it's $1 billion project. So this is critical today to move forward because we need to show everybody that we are absolutely committed to this. And the other thing you need to know is from an air quality management point of view, this is now in our SCAG plan for air quality management mitigation for the region. This project is our project, it's SCAG's project to mitigate air quality issues in the region. Remember, it was a 241 and now it's been shifted to this, 241.5, it's been shifted to this. So there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of play. But what I'm asking all of you is to vote for this today and then continue to work with this board and staff to ensure that all the questions that OCTA has are answered, and that as we negotiate further and get ready to kind of prepare to go to the OCTA board for approval, every one of you, if you believe in this project, and it's very important for the success of the 241, by the way, if you believe in this project, we're going to need an all-hands strategy and approach with all the directors at OCTA to make them understand how important this is, because their focus is going to be what I just outlined to you. They're going to feel compelled to fulfill the promise of Measure M. And if they think in any way whatsoever that the investment grade study on the traffic and revenue report shows any deprivation of revenue to OCTA and the 91 express lanes, that's going to be a hard sell for them, because suddenly, and this is a new factor, they're feeling the pressure to use excess revenue to fulfill the promise. That's their mandate through Measure M. So some new factors have come into play that weren't here originally, and I thought it was going to be a tough sell, or at least a difficult sell, but sustainable and attainable. But I just want you to know it's even gotten a little more tricky in the last 6 months because of the shortfall in Measure M. So I urge an aye vote. I'll move the recommended actions, but just understand we're going to be enlisting everybody at some point, and staff knows that. We're going to all ask you, with your relationships with the OCTA directors, to weigh in as heavy as you can. But once we get everything ready, like when it's packaged, we have our message points, we know it's a good deal, we know it doesn't hurt OCTA, doesn't hurt the 91 express lanes, doesn't hurt RCTC, and that everybody understands that the message is every agency in Southern California is responsible for improving regional mobility.
And I'll second that motion.
I'll second that for,
so that's a Foothill Eastern only.
Foothill Eastern, Chidu, San Juan.
Foothill Eastern, so we have a motion. Did the clerk get that entire motion? Because that was a lengthy one. I know.
It was just a good explanation.
Yeah. Dr. Ferguson.
Just a question. Has there been other opposition identified at this point? It doesn't, I mean, I've driven, we've all driven it, so I can't imagine there would be, but is there public?
So at this point, there's no known opposition. We've heard positive comments about it. Obviously, the concern is that it all works correctly. Right. But we are putting out our draft environmental document November 7th, and we'll be in a 60-day period with a public meeting. So we'll hear that. But all of the presentations we've made have been very favorable to this because it's such an improvement to regional mobility.
Okay. Any other questions? So for Foothills Eastern only, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Sid. So that brings us to our Chief Executive Officer's report, Mr. Kramer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of items to report. First, for Foothills Eastern Transportation Corridor, transactions for the month of September were up 6.6%. and revenue was up 9.3%, so the roads continue to perform well. For San Joaquin Hills, transactions were up 5.3% and revenue was up 8.5%. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Do we have any director's report?
I just want to publicly congratulate Director Rickheimer. I know that Director Monahan has childcare issues, and I want to thank you, Jim, for coming and replacing Gary when he's not here. It means a lot to us. And Costa Mesa's representation is critical, but as elected officials, we're in the spotlight. We deal with controversy, and it's, you know, it makes our lives exciting, but it makes them burdensome. And you have Director Rickheimer has had to go through just a horrible, horrible, horrible nightmare. He and his family, his wife in particular, the famed, you know, following him, trying to get drummed up charges that they could use against the campaign from the police union. That kind of conduct is unconscionable. And it couldn't be at a worse time, right? We just had 2 officers killed in Boston or back east overnight. Palm Springs last week, a deputy's being buried as we speak, or this memorial services. And we are at the most critical time in our history, I think, with respect to police relations with our citizens and civil rights and all kinds of issues. And we're the ones, as the electeds, that have got to fix this. But I do think you need to be acknowledged publicly, because you've been very kind of introspective about it, because you've been having this entire legal process facing you, and you didn't know how it was going to come out. But it came out with a guilty plea, I think it was last week, of one of the participants. And I just want you to know that even though we haven't been vocal about it here, and probably we're a transportation agency, right? Maybe this is more fitting for a city council comment, but I just want to, you and Steve, you've gone through heck and back, and I just want you to know, probably all of us have really thought about it a lot, maybe didn't express it to you, but I just want to really thank you for coming and showing up and not letting that kind of circumstance get you down. And you and your family were certainly vindicated completely. We knew that from the beginning. We knew it was drummed up, but I think I read your comments, and I read about the press conference that you had with Steve, and I just want to congratulate you publicly. Jim, you're always been a man of honor. I was laughing with Scott Piotr. A lot of us, we're pretty controversial. We take stands, we get in all kinds of messes. But the fact is, we do what we do, and we are the elected officials, and we are the public eye on the community, and you just have been awesome. So I just wanted to let you know you've been in our hearts, okay? And so congratulations to you, Jimmy.
Thank you. Just on that note there, my dad passed away a few years ago, and he was a deputy sheriff. My brother retired recently as a police officer. It's been very, very hard for me, who supports the men and women in blue and the firefighters, to just say, I love you guys, but this is about money issues, and kind of trying to find a way to separate that without being it. And then what you just talked about, what's happening across the country, where people are attacking our police officers, and these are the backbone of our country. And it's very tough. We're going to go through a tough election. The associations will be, doing what they do. But thank you for your comments. I think if all of us just try to separate that, we love these men and women, but sometimes there's just a money issue, and we got to separate those things. And now we don't love you. Sometimes you just got to do what we got to do for the rest of the taxpayers. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments from the director? Director Crew.
I just want to thank Mr. Kramer for working with your staff to continue to make improvements to TCA. working towards efficiency, using technology. I mean, this agenda was a perfect example of how we are directly attempting to address all of our goals. And whether it's the Express Connector or customer service issues, I just want you to know I think we all appreciate what you're doing and appreciate your staff.
And on behalf of the staff, thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Director Ward.
I would like to bring up to the board an option that we might look at, and since now we're combined, that maybe this meeting should start at 9:30. In South County, we have construction going on the 5, and currently one of our off-ramps is closed and it's routing everyone along Las Ramblas into Dana Point onto the freeway. Today I actually thought that there was a long line, and I thought that was the holdup on the freeway until I encountered an accident in San Juan Capistrano with a car in the number 2 lane. But I think that we should look at whether that would make any difference to anyone, or in our efficiency if we started at 9:30 instead of 9.
Can we consider, yes, Director.
And I second that, because it took me over an hour to get here this morning, which is unbelievable for 14 miles. It was nothing but bumper to bumper. Every exit. I don't have a toll road next to me. I'm down the 5. I live near Disneyland. It would take me 2 hours. Anyway, if it's bumper to bumper, all the exits, when you go to 55, it's always jammed up. And so today was extraordinary, but it's taking me 45 to 50 minutes to get here on any given day at that time of the morning. So I agree, 9:30 would be great.
I'll get some traffic data from my buddy Ryan here, and we'll look at the different times of the day, but we could consider that. We would have to bring that in the form of a resolution to change our official start time, but we can look into that.
Okay.
We just need more toll lanes and toll roads in Orange County.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, so now I believe we have some closed session items. Mr. Joseph.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. There will be 2 items for the joint closed session. One is a public employee performance evaluation regarding the position of Chief Executive Officer under Government Code 54957. The other is a consultation with representatives of the Irvine Police Department regarding threat to public services or facilities, and that one will be conducted first, and because it's going to be conducted in this room, with apologies, we have to ask the members of the public and staff to leave the room at this time, and we will, with the conclusion of that item, anyone who wants to come back in, we will certainly announce that that item has been concluded. We do not anticipate any reportable action.